Boy, he can only work with what you freely give him. This is what my pops used to thunder around the house to me in in his signature tone. And it was not ever what I wanted to hear, but it was exactly what I needed to hear. Boy, he can only work with those things that you freely give him. And so I didn't like this early on in my life, but what I find is as I move along, and especially in this time, just about to be September, kids are going back to school, starting to lose focus a little bit on what I started off with in January. Maybe I'm hitting some of the goals. Maybe I'm not hitting some of the goals. Maybe I'm struggling with something right now. And what I found is anything that I'm struggling with, it goes back to my pops' words. It's because I haven't given it freely to him. It's such a crazy thing when we look at it. And in Proverbs 26, it identifies the major things that will cause struggle and leads us back to the simple solution to freely give it to him. So if you're struggling with something today, ask yourself, have I given it to him? Well, the funny thing is, if you've given it to him, you won't be struggling anymore. Why don't we get this party started?
Nothing more on my mind. I got to shine, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
Are you struggling with something today? If you're struggling with that thing, most of the time it's because we haven't freely given it away. And these are the things that are so profound, although they're very simple. My pops would always say to me, boy, he can only work with what you freely give him. And when we freely give God that thing, whether it be our personal life, our professional life, our spiritual life, our financial life, it's amazing that he starts to work with it, but he's not going to snatch it out of your hand. And so I think this is fitting because as I sat down with Proverbs 26 today, it was one of those things where, it's that time in the year, right? So we start off in January and we're hyped and we got New Year's resolutions. We're so excited. And then, our second quarter, we kind of check in with ourselves. Are we in that place, whatever it is? And in the third quarter, we start to forget what we started the year with. Sometimes we have a few celebrations of the, goals that we've hit or the things that we've hit. And then the challenges start to come in and we start to ask ourselves, oh man, I'm kind of struggling with this a little bit. And I've found that every time that I'm struggling in my life with something, it's because I haven't freely given it away. And, in Proverbs 26, it talks about it identifies the major things that will cause struggle and leads us back to the simple solution to freely give it to him, right? And I had my buddy Craig. It was great because, I always think for practical application, what my buddy Craig said to me, he spoke life. We just got done with our men's group. If you haven't been to our men's group, it's in Carlsbad, 7:30 to 8:30 on Tuesday mornings. It is unbelievable. Mike Smalls was there today, Cole Brumman and Craig Gottlieb, the history hunter. We have these guys are not only incredible in their heart, but they're some of the most accomplished and most incredible people. But what I mentioned to Craig and to the men's group was the thing that I was struggling with. We all shared this, and I said the thing that I was struggling with is the next big thing. And I have the tendency to say, okay, so I did this thing, and it was great, and it was amazing, it was a blessing, and God just blessed me tremendously. And then I look for the next big thing. Like last week, I got to have Taboo from the Black Eyed Peas, one of my favorite groups of all time, on the podcast. Well, when I got done with that, as opposed to sitting in it and really appreciating and thanking God, I was like, okay, so who's the next person? And I was looking for that next big thing, right? And it's amazing because I reached out to Taboo from the Black Eyed Peas on Instagram. He hit me back within an hour. We were able to connect, and now we're friends. And I told him, I'm going to force you to be my friend for the rest of your life. I checked his Instagram, and he's out in the Philippines right now and performing in front of 50, 70, 100,000 people. But now that's a friend that I have, and that's a huge thing. But I have the tendency to start to look at, okay, what's the next big thing? What's the next big thing? What's the next big thing? And my buddy Craig, he spoke life to me today afterwards. He said, I think it was he said it was Gutenberg, or I can't remember the exact name. He said when he created the printing press, did he think that he was going to change the world? No, he was just creating something. And he said, did Bill Gates, when he created Microsoft, did he think that he was going to change the world? And his answer was no, he was just creating something. He said, your next big thing is the thing that you think is a small thing. And I want to send that out to you, every one of you listening. Stop thinking, well, when I say this, stop thinking, and I'm speaking to myself, stop thinking about changing the world or the next big thing, and focus in on what God has you to do right now, that little tiny inchstone, that little tiny inchstone. And what is an inchstone? It's that little tiny step that gets you closer, and when you pile them up, they become the milestones, right? So when we look at in Proverbs 26, I always look at practical application, and I got called to the table on this. So what my pops would always say is, boy, he can only work with what you freely give him, right? That you got to give it up. You got to give it to him. And if you're struggling in your finances, give it to God. If you're struggling in your personal life, give it to God. If you're struggling in your professional life, give it to God. If you're struggling in your spiritual life, give it to him. But don't give it to him in a way of like, I'm giving it to you as long as you bring me back something that I want. You got to give it to him and let it go. And God always works with me practical application. So I was reading this and I was spending time in the Word, and I was using my, I go through the corresponding proverb, corresponding day. I'm holding up the Vibe Within, which is the Inchstones workbook. You could get that on Amazon. The link is in the bio. But as I was doing that, I came inside and I was like, wow, I have this great theory. You got to freely give it to God, and you got to submit and all these things. And I identified all the major things, which I'm going to share with you here in a second, that can cause you to struggle. And it leads us back to this, simple solution that to freely give it to him. And I'm pumped up and I've got the theory. And then I walk in and my daughter is kind of down. And she's got these things looming at school that she's challenged with. And she's, worrying about them, and they haven't happened yet. She doesn't know what's going to happen, but she's already worrying about it. And I said, hey, let's come together as a family. Maddox, get over here. Mom, come here. All of us hold hands. We get around my daughter and we pray about it and we give it to God. And it hit me right then. It's like, you can have all this theory in the world. You can have all these, all this thought process, but it's got to have practical application to it. You got to apply it. And God gave me that opportunity to be able to apply it with my daughter and to be able to take that. And that's how big God is. He's into the details. This is what my mom would always say. He's into the details, but allow him to work. And my pops would say, boy, he can only work with what you freely give him. So today, what are you struggling with? And if you're struggling with it, give it to him. And guess what? Most likely you won't be struggling with it anymore. So in Proverbs 26, let's say it again. It identifies the major things that will cause a struggle, right? What causes struggle? We think about the struggles happen, but a lot of times we don't realize what actually causes them. Here we go. Here's the breakdown. Wisdom brings honor, foolishness doesn't. So think of that. If you have honor in your life, meaning that the words and actions are in line, that you're honoring things in your life, that you're respecting them, that means that there's wisdom that's present. If that isn't, that's foolishness. Foolishness is just the absence of wisdom. Wisdom brings honor. Foolishness doesn't. If you want honor in your life, seek wisdom. But where does wisdom come from? It comes from the fear of God. That's the beginning of all wisdom. And the fear of God is just the respect of God. It's amazing because people wear a shirt that says fear of God, but a lot of times they won't sit in and realize what that actually means. It just means the respect of God. Spend time with him, see his words, see his actions, And when they're in line, then you'll have respect, which is fear. That's what the word actually meant during the time. It changed things for me when I understood that. In verse 3, it invites wisdom invites discipline, foolishness doesn't. If you're inviting discipline into your life, if you're inviting getting better, if you're inviting those things, then wisdom is present. If not, then they won't, right? Foolishness does not invite discipline. It waits until it gets discipline. Foolishness is just the absence of wisdom. And we don't recommend that at all. In verse 4 through 10 is wisdom applies discretion in words and actions. What is discretion? It's to be able to kind of pump the brakes a little bit. To be able to have discretion, you got to have insight. To have insight, you got to have understanding. To have understanding, you got to have knowledge. To have knowledge and the right use of it, you got to have wisdom. But wisdom, the beginning of all of it, is the fear of God or the respect of God. But watch this. Wisdom applies discretion in words and in actions. Foolishness doesn't. In verse 11 through 12, wisdom applies discernment, discipline, and strength. Foolishness doesn't. Wisdom applies discernment. Discernment is a muscle. Discernment is the ability to be able to look at a situation, and although you can do it, that you can accomplish it, that you look at it and say, it's just not for me. Because it's not right in line with who I am and what my purpose is. That's a muscle. But get this, discernment requires discretion. Discretion requires insight. Insight requires understanding. Understanding requires knowledge. Knowledge requires wisdom. And wisdom always requires the fear of God. But wisdom applies discernment, it applies discipline, and it applies strength. Imagine if you had discernment as a muscle, you had the discipline to be able to apply it, and you had the strength to be able to see it through. Wisdom applies all of those. Foolishness doesn't. Wisdom is diligent, foolishness is lazy. What's diligence? It's right work. What is right work? It's doing the thing that you're supposed to do. How do I know if I'm supposed to do it? Well, I can tell you that God knows that. And if you spend time with him, then he'll let you know of the things that you need to do. And it'll help you to be diligent, which will be right work. And when you do right work, you're a sniper as opposed to, just a buckshot. Spray and pray. Hopefully this thing works out, as opposed to saying, I'm just going to take and I'm going to lock in on my target and I'm going to go at it. That's what diligence is. It's right work. Right work doesn't make you tired. Right work doesn't take as much energy as a bunch of busy work. If you're exhausted, if you're weary, most likely you're doing some things that you have not applied diligence in. Wisdom is diligent, foolishness is lazy. In verse 17 through 19, wisdom minds its business and works its land, foolishness doesn't. Wisdom minds its own business. Because wisdom is the right use of knowledge. Then you add knowledge to it. That knowledge brings understanding. Understanding brings insight. Insight brings discretion. Discretion brings discernment. Discernment brings discipline. Discipline brings strength. And that leads you right back to the fear of God, which is the beginning of all wisdom. When we're doing that, and we have those things, imagine that. We just work our land. We don't worry about our neighbor's land. We don't worry about what other people are doing. Although the challenge is, and this is one of the challenges and struggles that we all have, is comparison. But imagine if you could erase comparison, or you could take yourself out of comparison and ask yourself, what is my land? And am I working that land? And am I minding my business? Is my mind on what I'm supposed to be doing? Wisdom minds its business and works its land, but foolishness doesn't. Wisdom speaks only life. Foolishness gossips. Wisdom uses positive fuel, and foolishness doesn't. Imagine that. Wisdom has a pure heart. Foolishness doesn't. Wisdom brings joy, peace, love. and life. Foolishness doesn't. As we go through this, I guess that is the blatantly obvious. I guess it's blatantly obvious that wisdom is the right choice. The million-dollar question is, how do we get it? The answer to that question resides in the signature familiar tone of my pops. Boy, he can only work with what you freely give him. Thanks, Pops. I appreciate you. I love you so much. And when you said it to me as a young kid, I didn't understand it, but it's amazing how now we can apply it in so many different areas. I got to apply it with my daughter today. I get to apply it in all the different areas. And what I would invite every one of you to do is just ask yourself today, what am I struggling with? What am I struggling with personally, professionally, spiritually, or financially? What am I struggling with? And when I'm struggling with that thing, have I truly, freely given it away? Have I given it away to God? Because when I do, or when you do, I can pretty much guarantee you won't be struggling with it any longer. I want to thank you all. My name is Kelly Cardenas. This has been an episode of Inchstones. We go through the corresponding proverb, corresponding day. Make sure you pick up the Inchstones book, The Vibe Within. It's a 3-month journal. It takes you through the corresponding proverb, corresponding day. We also have The Vibe, which this will apply to your business. It takes you through the 5 aspects of your business. You could grade yourself in it, which is culture, process and procedure, productivity, innovation, and the ability to adapt immediately, all wrapped around in the vibe, which is not the energy that someone brings into the room, but it's the way that people feel when you leave. And I tell you, when the vibe is right and you're scoring high in your culture, in your process and procedure, your productivity, your innovation, and your ability to adapt immediately, those are the kind of companies and organizations that are able to grow and sustain that growth over time, because they're focused on people and they manage systems. So hopefully you have a phenomenal, phenomenal day. My name is Kelly Cardenas, and I'm officially off the hot seat. Peace, love, and soul.
Nothing more on my mind. I got 2 shines, so every day I grind. Work in the morning, work in the evening. We's achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over again. Make